Hi, all you awesome scuba divers out there. Welcome to Scuba Diving Magazine and welcome to Ask Mark, our scuba diving Q&A, where I do my very best to answer your scuba diving questions. If you do have any scuba diving questions, pop them down in the comment section underneath this video. Use this Ask Mark hashtag to get yourself and your question featured. But in the meantime, I do my best to type out an answer so you do get an answer as soon as possible. You don't have to wait for the video to be released. And the general the subscribers like to help out and answer questions, which is awesome. Well done, everybody. Today I'm answering a question from Tom about dSMB designs. So Tom says, hello Mark, I really like the Q&A series, great job, thank you. I'm wondering which type of dSMB I should choose. There are different colours, sizes, open-ended, closed, etc. Is there something I should pay particular attention to? So the most common dSMB design in scuba diving is going to be a red closed cell buoy, probably about 150 centimeters long. As a general rule, you want the largest buoy possible. The whole point of a surface marker buoy is to be seen on the surface. So whilst a small dSMB may pack into a pocket easier, in rough seas you want the largest buoy to stand really nice and tall. Now, as far as colour, I only have reds or orange. It depends who you're sort of buying it from. This is quite an old dSMB. I've got this for a different reason to the reason I got it out. Red typically means location. We use these as location markers. They're the best all-rounder, and 99% of divers will have a red dSMB. Yellow in some circles means emergency. So some divers, if they're going on long, deep dives, or even just long dives, they'll have a red dSMB and a yellow dSMB. If they can't come straight up to the surface at the end, towards the end of the dive, but there's some kind of emergency, they'll send up the yellow dSMB instead of the red one. That tells the surface something's wrong, be prepared, basically. With some of them, you can attach notes and whatnot, so they'll attach and they'll write down, oh, I need extra oxygen or something, and then send that up to the surface. Whoever's on the boat or on the surface can read that, prepare the gear, either send it back down with a safety diver or whatever. It's not a hard fast rule. Some divers do just dive with yellow buoys. In some conditions they can stand out better compared to red, but it's all depending on whether the light's like in front of it or behind it or whatnot. But yeah, in some circles it can mean emergency. Black dSMBs kind of came and went like in and out of popularity within probably a couple of years. Some divers swore that they were far easier to spot in the seas because the black contrasted against the blue waters. Again, it's another one. It depends kind of where the sun is in relation to the buoy and the viewer. Some boat captains I've heard will not let you dive, or prefer it if you do not dive with a black dSMB. And then you get all sorts of weird and wonderful like whites and pinks and all sorts of stuff. The novelty ones, they're fine, but one reason why they're red is that it matches our like diver down flag, so it's red. They typically, and they often have like solus reflective tape as well, so it's kind of that red and white. So yeah, red is typically the most popular. You do get some that are two-tone. They'll have red on one side and yellow on the other, and it's supposed to have that kind of flashing effect if it turns in the water. Don't know how much that sort of works, but yeah, red is by far the most popular and practical color. Then we go down to the bottom of the dSMB. There are at least 3 different bottom styles. So this one, for example, is a closed cell, so there's no opening at the bottom. It's heat welded all the way up to the top, and that's basically a sealed bag, and you can only inflate it through that nozzle. You then get open-ended, which is just kind of like a sock. So you put air in from the bottom and then that fills up to the top, and that's kind of it. Downside to just open-ended is that if that flops over on the surface, then the air can just escape through the bottom. You often have these like little blocks of, I actually don't know what it is. I always assumed that it was lead, because lead is quite malleable and it's got a fair amount of weight to it. And they kind of help to keep it closed, but it's not perfect, so it's always best to keep a bit of tension on that line to make sure that the buoy is standing upright. This one is what I call fluted, and you might be able to see there's a little like bottleneck in here, and that's so that when gas goes in, as it fills up, it actually closes that opening when it's full, so it prevents the gas from escaping, but only when it's completely full. If you only half fill it and it's only half full on the surface, it'll flop over and there's still a chance that the gas can escape. So it kind of has to be completely full. So those are the three basic types of bottom. Personally, I prefer closed cell just because whatever gas that I put inside it is going to be there on the surface when I come back up. There's no chance of, well, there's very little chance of any gas escaping from it, unless the overpressure valve fails in like either, God, I haven't used this in a while, in either position, then yeah. So personally, I prefer closed cell. I just find them much more reliable. The different designs, you notice that this one has this black stitching down one side only, whereas this one has black stitching down both sides. I prefer this style with stitching down both sides, and the reason for that is the reason why I got this this old boy out in I forget where it is, but this is just a single piece of material folded over and then stitched and sealed down one side, and it does make it nice and neat and cheap as well. But down that folded edge, it just wears that much faster, so eventually it does start to leak. So for longevity, it's better to have stitching down both sides because there isn't that like folding creased edge, and of course you can get like double seamed, completely closed. Otherwise, thinking about the top, so this just has a basic top. They typically have brand names on the top. Some divers put their names on it as well. Otherwise, you'll often find solus tape. Some will have like diver below. There's a few like behind me that has some information. That is solus reflective tape. On night dives, it's if someone's like searching with a searchlight, it reflects and it stands out really well, so it helps you get seen. Some will also have like a pouch, just a very clear pouch on one side, sometimes on the top. That's so that if you have wet notes, you can write that message to the surface. If you stuck on a deco stop or something and you have to send word up to the surface, you can write down whatever you want, roll it up, tuck it in there, inflate the buoy, send that up to the surface. It's useful, but only if someone's going to actually check your buoy. This one has a little Nemo, a little fish on the top, which is a little bit of fun. Yeah, you tend to get these from a lot of like AliExpress and all that kind of stuff. This was a sample that they, I forget the name of the manufacturer, sent it to us, and I suppose it does help to personalize, and they can really pick out and they go, that's Stephen. Stephen's got the buoy with the fish at the top of it. There's a few designs. It's more novelty than anything else. Otherwise, have a look at the inflator. So, especially if it's a closed cell dSMB, this is how you're going to inflate it. This is the same fitting as your BCD. So there's a couple of ways that you can inflate it. You can disconnect your low pressure inflator hose or have a second one that you only use for your dSMB. And when you pop it on, it doesn't have the attachment feature where you push the quick disconnect hose onto your BCD. You push it and it clicks and locks into position. Doesn't have that feature. So you push it on and that opens up the Schrader valve. Gas comes straight from your cylinder. It's very quick and efficient. And then as soon as it's full and you let go, it just slides straight off. So it's very quick and easy. It's spring loaded, so when you push it on, you're adding air into the buoy, and then it just self closes, and your Schrader valve stops as well. You can reconnect that to your BCD, or you can orally inflate it. So these are either plastic, like this one. There's a metal one somewhere, but the downside to the metal ones are stronger and tougher. But a lot of divers nowadays, they already inflate by blowing into these. So so you just push it with your lips and then blow into it. That way your buoyancy doesn't shift from that first breath. But metal on your teeth can be a bit much. So plastic ones are a little bit nicer. Apex made one that just had a oral inflation almost mouthpiece. So you couldn't use a low pressure inflator, but you could orally inflate it very conveniently. Otherwise, at the bottom, look for a convenience place to attach your spool, the line, and yeah, a bungee loop or some kind of Velcro is quite useful to once it's all like wrapped up, you put it in the bungee and it keeps it nice and contained. Otherwise, you do get some that have like mini cylinders attached to them. You fill up the cylinder before the dive from your main cylinder, and then you attach it onto the dSMB. When you're ready to deploy it, you attach it onto a reel or a spool, and then you just open up that cylinder valve. They're like a 0.1 litre cylinder, and it just, all of that gas just vents into the buoy. They're much more expensive because you're paying for a cylinder on top of a dSMB. I'm not a huge fan of them. I get that they're good as an independent air source, so you don't have to waste either breathing gas or buoyancy gas or whatever it is to inflate a buoy. The downside is if it's like stored in a pocket or something, and however something rubs up against it and opens and cracks that cylinder valve, it's just going to inflate in your pocket or attached to you, and I don't want that attached to me. I've never been a huge fan of those like mini cylinders for whatever use, and also they don't require regular periodic testing as like an actual scuba cylinder does. So yeah, I'm not a huge fan of them. But yeah, if you're looking for a buoy, closed cell, red, a good 1.5 meters long. The bigger the better. They go up to like 3 meters, I think is the largest one that I've ever seen. Mari's XR do some really nice ones. Yeah, that would be like my recommendation. Closed cell, red, 1.5 meter long, and with seams stitching down both sides just for longevity. Yeah, DSMBs and buoys are thankfully much more common than they were when I first started. They were a thing, but it wasn't a part of your like foundational course, especially in PADI. We never used to teach it. I was never taught it. It was just kind of a thing that you figured out once you were qualified. I remember with a guy that I used to teach with, we were teaching some students out in Egypt. We just had some extra time, and we figured, hey, why don't we teach them how to send up a dSMB? Because that's pretty much an essential skill. And yet now Now that I've stopped teaching, it is I think it's a required skill in your open water course to send up a dSMB, and a lot of liverboards especially require at least one of a buddy pair to have their own dSMB and know how to use it. It's usually at the end of the first dive, the check dive, everybody has to send up a dSMB who carries one, just so that the dive guide can check that everyone's okay to send up a dSMB, because it is a bit of a skill, and if you haven't done it in a while, you can get tangled up. So yeah, just take it nice and slow, work as a buddy pair as well. But yeah, as far as design, red. Red's your most common. I wouldn't bother with any other colour unless you really want to stand out on the dive site. And closed cell, just to eliminate issues with it deflating on the surface, and the bigger the better. Even if you're diving in like calm waters, if I'm lost at sea, I want the biggest thing to make it easier for search and rescue to find me as possible. So yeah, I don't tend to dive with the smaller ones anymore. I tend to dive with the bigger dSMBs. They take a bit more space in a pocket, but it's just worth it, basically. It's there to be seen, so I want it as big as possible. Any other questions, pop them down in the comment section underneath this video. Use the #AskMark hashtag. It gets yourself and your question featured in an up and coming video. Any other comments, questions, queries, corrections, recommendations as well, pop them down in the comment section, and head over to our website, scubadivingmag.com. Check out all the awesome things that we do over there and our other social media channels. Like and subscribe here on YouTube. Thank you for watching, everybody, and of course, safe diving.